Jefferson County Court at Law number 2 is back in session. Next case that we have is cause number 331646. Case is style of State of Texas versus Shay Michael Ratcliffe. Mr. Ratcliffe, would you please come forward and stand on the X? Mr. Ratcliffe, would you please please raise your right hand. Mr. Ratcliffe, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ratcliffe, you may put your hand down. And how you doing, Mr. Ratcliffe?
Doing good. You?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for asking. Mr. Ratcliffe, I have before me a document that is titled information. This information was filed by the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office. Hold on a minute. Okay, Mr. Ratcliffe, I have before me an information that has been filed by the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office. This information alleges that on or about May 30th of 2021, while you were in Jefferson County, Texas, that you committed to Class B misdemeanor offense of boating while intoxicated. Mr. Ratcliffe, do you understand what you've been charged with?
Yes, sir.
And to this charge, Mr. Ratcliffe, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest?
No contest.
Let me do this here. He's gonna have to check where it says DWI. I'm gonna have to change that to boating while intoxicated.
Yes, sir.
It's the same punishment range as that.
Semantics. Okay. Legal semantics.
Your ball card. All four.
Yeah, it's a Class B, but it's a,
Yes, sir. I understand. Thank you.
okay.
So what we're doing is, because it's not a regular class, it's a Class B misdemeanor, but it's specialized one. The judge wrote typically, all right, they would check while driving while intoxicated, first offense, but the judge changed it to boating while intoxicated, and those are his initials. So we'll check there, just identifying this is the correct offense. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Ratcliffe, this document that I have before me states Exhibit 1, the misdemeanor plea admonishment. There's one box that's checked. It's on the first page. And my initials. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
Now, the box that's checked states that this is it will be a BWI, or boating while intoxicated first, which is a Class B misdemeanor. Okay, and the range of punishment is a confinement in jail for at least 72 hours, but not to exceed 180 days. Yeah, not to exceed 180 days. A fine not to exceed $2,000, or both such confinement and fine. Mr. Ratcliffe, do you understand the range of punishment?
Yes, sir.
That's just a range of punishment for a boating while intoxicated.
Okay.
That's just a range. Your punishment can fall anywhere within that range.
Okay.
All right. Now, the next page I have on the same document, there's two sets of initials. The first set of initials is on a line next to a box that's checked nolo contendere. And the next set of initials, and both initials are SR. The second set of initials is below a paragraph that is checked, below a paragraph that is titled Discovery Admonishment. And they are on a line next to a statement that reads, I do not request discovery of the evidence. I waive my right to request discovery in this case and choose to enter a plea of guilty or no contest. Now, Mr. Ratcliffe, on page 2, do you recognize your initials? Are these your initials? And on page 3 of this same document, Mr. Ratcliffe, there is a signature above the line that is titled Defendant. Is that your signature?
Yes, sir.
And on the next document, which is titled Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Right of Appeal, do you recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
And is this your signature above the line that is titled Defendant?
Yes, sir.
There are two boxes that are checked at the top of this document. The first box that's checked states that this is a plea bargain case and you have no right of appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
The second box that's checked states that you're waiving your right to appeal, which means you're giving up your right to an appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Ratcliffe, I also have before me a document that's titled Judge's Explanation of Defendants to Defendants Without Attorney. You recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
And is this your signature on the line that's titled Defendant?
Yes, sir.
And are these your initials online stating you want to waive your right to an attorney
Yes, sir.
and represent yourself? I also have a document here that's titled Defendants, Waiver of Counsel for Purposes of Entering a Guilty Plea or Proceeding to Trial. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
And is this your signature on the line that's titled Defendant?
Yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Ratcliffe, before you sign the initial, all of these documents that I've just mentioned to you, did you read the documents?
Yes, sir.
And did you understand what you read?
Yes, sir.
And is everything in these documents true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ratcliffe, are you a citizen of the United States?
Yes, sir.
State, I have before me States Exhibit number 1 and States Exhibit number 2. State, you like to offer States Exhibit number 1 and 2?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Ratcliffe, I have before me States Exhibit number 1 and 2. States Exhibit number 1 is a document that you acknowledge, the one that has my initials on it and have voting while intoxicated on page 1. And on page 2, this document have your initials in the 2 locations. And on page 3, it has your signature that you previously acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
The state would like to use this document as evidence against you in your case. Is it all right for the state to use this document as evidence against you in your case?
Yes, sir.
All right. And I also have before me State's Exhibit number 2. State's Exhibit number 2 is the probable cause affidavit commonly referred to as the police report.
Yes, sir.
The state would like to offer this document as evidence in your case as well. Is it all right for the state to use this document as evidence in your case?
Yes, sir.
Okay, no objection. State's Exhibits number 1 and 2 are admitted. Mr. Ratcliffe, is there any evidence that you're currently mentally incompetent to stand trial?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Ratcliffe, I will accept your plea of no contest. I will find that you are mentally competent to stand trial. I will also find that your plea and waivers are freely and voluntarily given. I will also find that there is sufficient evidence to find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. State, do we have a plea bargain agreement?
We do, Your Honor.
What is that agreement?
Your Honor, the agreement is for 6 months of deferred probation, a $300 fine, 30 hours of community service, DWI education classes, alcohol assessments, and during the term of the deferred probation, for installation of an interlock on the boat that was used in this case.
Okay, this is, you say 30 hours of community service?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Let's see.
$3906 is.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I'm looking at Article 42.102. That was really for deferred adjudication, community supervision. Let's see, that's 42.102 B1 B1B. Judge may grant deferred adjudication unless. Now, let me ask you, sir, do you have a commercial's driver's license?
No, sir.
Huh?
No, sir.
Or commercial's learner's permit?
No, sir.
Okay, the defendant is alcohol. What was his alcohol concentration level?
0.11, Judge, 115.
0.11. Okay, so it's less than 0.15. And this offense occurred after September 1st of 2019. So it was May 30th of 2021. The defendant concentration level.
Yes, Your Honor, confirmed. BAC was 0.115.
Okay. Okay, so let's see. Okay. Okay, so it seems like he meets the eligibility requirements. Okay, so Mr. Ratcliffe, the state is offering that you serve 6-month deferred adjudicated probation. During this 6-month deferred adjudicated probationary period, you'll be required to pay a fine of $300 plus court costs of $422, which comes to a total of $720, a total fine and court cost of $722. Your probation fee is $60 each month. You'll be required to pay a analysis fee of $15 each month. You'll be required to pay a DWI education class and initial evaluation fee of $125 on the day of the plea. Should a further evaluation be needed, you'll be required to pay an additional $50. Now, your total monthly installments, that is, the total amount that you will be required to pay while you're on deferred adjudicated probation is $220 each month. Mr. Ratcliffe, will you be able to pay the $220?
Yes, sir.
You will also be required to perform 30 hours of community service. Yeah, you'll be required to attend and complete DWI education class and have a drug and alcohol assessment. You'll be required to install an interlock device on the boat, on a boat or any boat that you are actually driving. Okay? You can't know that you're actually operating. And you'll also be required to adhere to the other standard terms and conditions of this probation. Mr. Ratcliffe, do you understand the state's offer?
Yes, sir.
And do you think that the state's offer in your case is fair and just?
Yes, sir.
And do you accept the state's offer?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ratcliffe, I'll follow the plea bargaining agreement that you have entered into with the state. Mr. Ratcliffe, you're gonna stand on the X to your left, and you're gonna follow the directions of our court coordinator, our court clerk. Once you finish following her directions, you'll be free to go and you have a blessed day.
Thank you.
Oh, and Mr. Ratcliffe, if you successfully complete the terms and conditions, let's see. Okay. Oh, you can stand back there. Now, upon violation of a condition of deferred adjudication community supervision imposed under Article 42A.104, and that's the article that you were given. Actually, it's 102 that you were given probation on. The defendant may be arrested or detained as provided in Article 42A.705. And the defendant is entitled to a hearing limited to the determination by the court of whether the court will proceed with an adjudication of guilt on the original charge. The court may not proceed with an adjudication of guilt on the original charge if the court finds that the only evidence supporting the alleged violation of a condition of deferred adjudication community supervision is the uncorroborated results of a polygraph. The determination of to proceed with an adjudication of guilt on the written charge is reviewable in the same manner as a revocation hearing conducted under Article 42.751D. Excuse me. In a case in which the adjudication of guilt was not deferred. Now, after adjudicating the guilt, all proceedings, including assessment of punishment, pronouncement of sentence, granting a community supervision, and your defendant's appeal continues as if adjudication of guilt had not been deferred. Now, Mr. Ratcliffe, if you successfully complete your deferred adjudicated probation, this case will be dismissed. It will not result in a conviction on your record, and you may qualify for a non-disclosure. And you can talk to an attorney about, a competent attorney about a non-disclosure, and they'll be able to tell you whether you qualify or not. Now, you're going to stand on the X to your left, follow the directions of our clerk. Once you finish following her directions, you'll be free to go, and you have a blessed day.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Wright.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Next case is cause number 331652. Case is style of State of Texas versus Paul Wynn. Mr. Wynn, would you please come forward? Mr. Wynn, would you please raise your right hand? Mr. Wynn, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Wynn, you may put your hand down. Mr. Wynn, how are you doing?
Very good. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for asking. Mr. Wynn, I have before me a document that is titled information. This document alleges that on or about October 14th of 2021, while you are operating a motor vehicle in a public place in Jefferson County, Texas, that you committed the Class A misdemeanor offense of driving while intoxicated with an alcohol concentration level of 0.15 or more. Mr. Wynn, do you understand what you have been charged with?
Yes, sir.
And to this charge, Mr. Wynn, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest?
Plead guilty.
Now, are you pleading guilty freely and voluntarily?
Yes, sir. Plead
And-
guilty.
And are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yeah.
Mr. Wynn, I have before me a document that is titled Misdemeanor Plea Admonishment. It is also labeled as State's Exhibit Number 1. Mr. Wynn, do you recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
On page 2 of the same document, Mr. Nguyen, there are two sets of initials. The initials are PN. The first set of initials is on a line next to a box that's checked guilty. The second set of initials is on a line below a paragraph next to a statement that reads, I do not request discovery of the evidence. I waive my right to request discovery in this case and choose to enter a plea of guilty or no contest. Mr. Nguyen, did you place your initials on this document?
Yes, sir.
On page 3 of the same document, Mr. Nguyen, there is a signature above the line that's titled defendant. Is that your signature?
Yes, sir.
On the next document that is titled Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Right of Appeal, do you recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
Is this your signature above the line that's titled defendant?
Yes, sir. It's mine.
There are two boxes that are checked at the top of this document. The first box says checked, states that this is a plea bargain case and you have no right of appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
The second box states that you're waiving your right to an appeal, which means you're giving up your right to an appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Mr. Nguyen, I also have before me a document that is titled Judge's Explanation of Rights to Defendant Without an Attorney. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
And is this your signature on the line that's titled defendant?
Yes, sir.
And are these your initials on the line stating that you want to waive your right to an attorney and represent yourself?
Yes.
I have another document that is titled Waiver of Counsel for Purposes of Entering a Guilty Plea or Proceeding to Trial. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
And is this your signature on this document?
Yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Nguyen, before you signed and initialed all of these documents that I've just mentioned to you, did you read the documents?
I did.
And did you understand what you read?
Yes, sir.
And is everything in these documents true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Nguyen, are you a U.S. citizen? Okay. State. I have before me state's exhibits number. Where is this exhibit? Oh, okay.
This one's the guilty plea.
Yeah. Yeah, I have before me state's exhibit number 1. State, you like to offer states 1?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Nguyen,
Yes, sir.
I have before me state's exhibit number 1. State's exhibit number 1 is a document that you acknowledge, that you recognize, which is the misdemeanor plea admonishments.
Yes, sir.
On page 2 of this same document, you acknowledge that these were your initials. And on page 3 of this document, you acknowledge that this is your signature above the line that's titled defendant.
Yes, sir.
The state would like to use this document as evidence against you in your case. Is it all right for the state to use this document as evidence in your case?
Yes, sir.
Okay. No objections. State's exhibit number 1 will be admitted. Okay, Mr. Nguyen, is there any evidence that you are currently mentally incompetent to stand trial?
What is it?
Do you understand, do you have any mental problems that's preventing you from understanding what's going on in your case? Okay, when I say have you ever, well, when we're talking about mental problems, we're trying to determine whether or not you're competent to stand trial. That is, you understand what you've been charged with. Is that correct?
I
You-
understand what.
You understand, do you understand the consequences of your plea? That is, in this case, you will have a conviction on your record for the offense of driving while intoxicated with an alcohol concentration level of 0.15 or more. Do you understand that?
I understand that I'm guilty. I'm plead guilty, yet give me the punish.
Okay, so you understand that because of you're entering a plea of guilty, that you'll be receiving punishment for this offense.
Yes, sir.
All right. And so there's nothing, I'm just trying to make sure there's nothing medically wrong with you that prevents you from understanding or that it affects your ability to understand the consequences of your plea and what you are actually pleading guilty to.
I'm guilty.
Okay, so my question is, do you understand when I ask you, is there any evidence that you're mentally incompetent? Incompetent means you have some mental problems that affects your ability to, one, understand what you've been charged with, two, understand the consequences of your plea. And I mean, when I say consequences, I'm just saying the results, what can happen by entering a plea of guilty. Do you understand that?
I understand that.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with it.
Okay, so nothing wrong with you. Okay. So, Mr. Nguyen, the court is going to accept your plea of guilty. The court is going to find that you are mentally competent to stand trial. The court will also find that your pleas and your waivers were freely and voluntarily given. Nobody forced you to enter your plea. And the court will also find that there is sufficient evidence to find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. State, do we have a plea bargain agreement?
We do, Your Honor.
And what is that agreement?
Your Honor, the agreement is for 90 days in jail, probated over a term of 1 year,
Okay.
a $500 fine, 30 hours of community service, completion of DWI education classes, alcohol assessments, and interlocked rights.
Okay. Mr. Nguyen,
Yes, sir.
the state is offering that you serve 90 days in the Jefferson County Jail. However, you will not serve any time in the Jefferson County Jail because you will be placed on probation for 1 year. During the 1 year probationary period, you will be required to pay a fine of $500 plus court costs of $422. The total amount of the fine and the court cost is $922. You will be required to pay a probation fee of $60 each month, a urinalysis fee of $15 each month. You will also be required to pay a Jefferson County DWI education class and initial evaluation fee of $125 on the day of the plea. Should a further evaluation be needed, you will be required to pay an additional $50. Now, the total monthly installments, that is the total amount that you will be required to pay each month while you are on probation, is $160 per month. Will you be able to pay the $160 each month?
I do, sir.
You will be required to perform 30 hours of community service, attend and complete a DWI education class, have a drug and alcohol assessment, install a DWI interlock device on any vehicle that you own or operate, and you will be required to adhere to the other standard terms and conditions of this probation. Mr. Nguyen, do you understand the state's offer?
Yes, sir.
And do you think that the state's offer in your case is fair and just?
It's fair.
And do you accept the state's offer?
I accept that.
Mr. Nguyen, I will follow the plea bargain agreement that you have entered into with the state. Mr. Nguyen, you're going to stand on the X next to your left, going to follow the directions of our clerk. Once you finish following her directions, you will be free to go and you have a blessed day. So please stand on the X. And
Place your right thumb. Your right. Yes, sir.
this will conclude the calling of our arraignment docket, which was scheduled at 9 a.m. on today's date of April 5th, 2022. In County Court of Law Number 2, Jefferson County, Texas, Judge Terrence L. Holmes presiding. Our court will reconvene for our trial